Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Sam Priestley, and as normal, we're joined by my lovely co-host, Emma Priestley.
Hello.
Emma, today I actually wanted to interview you.
Ooh.
So instead of just having to listen to me drone on while you try and keep me on track, we're now going to have a bit of a role reversal. The reason why I would have thought this would be a good episode is because you've been doing quite a lot of what is effectively door-to-door selling. You've been going from bar to bar, restaurant to restaurant, which all kind of culminated in this day on Tuesday you had 2 days ago, where you went around some of the best bars and restaurants in London trying to sell our new gin. So a short backstory is that we own a gin brand together called Pipehouse Gin, and coming out next week on the 30th of March, we've got a new flavour coming out. We've got pink grapefruit and thyme gin. And so you've been going around some of the best restaurants in London and the best bars trying to tell them about our gin and trying to sell it to them, which sounds pretty terrifying to me, but you've been loving it, and it's also worked in well with your sort of bigger, greater plan. So yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a gamble, really. You didn't really warm them up or prep them. You just went in and asked for the bar manager.
I didn't even do that.
Didn't even do that. What did you do?
So, first of all, I created a list of places I thought I should go to. And that list started with brands that I thought had a really English kind of focus. So we're a very English brand. We're based in Kent. Our flavourings are quite English. So I thought it would work quite well. And then I also asked people that within the industry. So we know someone that's got a beer brand, for example, for recommendations of places that probably could buy from us direct rather than buy from big distributors. I literally rocked up to these places, got a seat at the bar, asked for the menu and ordered a cocktail. And I sat there and chatted with the bar team and introduced our gin very softly. And then I gave them a sample of our gin, which I had in my bag, and started the conversation as a customer and then ended it as a potential supplier.
Oh, and how did it go?
Really well. So I was quite nervous for the first one. I actually planned to go to a restaurant that was on the way to somewhere I had a lunch booking for, and I got too scared to go to that one on the way to the lunch. So in my head, I was like, I'm going to have the lunch first and then I'm going to do it. So that's how scared I was, which is funny because I've been in probably hundreds of bars and restaurants now within Kent to introduce our gin. So it's not something that I haven't got experience in, but it's still quite intimidating. I'm a big foodie, so some of the places I went to, I really respect and think they're really good. So part of me thought, oh, who am I going into one of my favourite restaurants asking them to stock our gin? But at the same time, that made it really exciting because the opportunity there was one of my favourite restaurants could stock our gin. So the first one I went into, as I said, sat at the bar. It was very quiet. I went so it was Tuesday afternoon after lunch, which is a really good time to go in. So after 2 p.m. before the dinner service. So it's quite quiet, which meant I was the only one sat at the bar. And the bar team didn't have loads of drinks orders to do. So it meant that they could make my cocktail and they could chat to me, which was perfect. So I found out how this first restaurant could purchase alcohol. They use 6 different distributors. None of them I'd heard of, so I could make a note of all of those. And then the bar staff tried our gin and gave me feedback, which was great. And then they also gave me loads of tips of other bars in the area that they thought would be a good fit for the flavour of our gin as well as the brand.
That's awesome. So you mentioned before, and we talked about it before in previous podcasts, that you're looking for places you thought could buy from us directly.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So typically bars and restaurants in the UK have big contracts with companies, with distributors. Basically, it means that every week they'll get a delivery of all of their drinks from one company, and that will be soft drinks, spirits, beer, everything. So it makes it very simple for the bar staff to order, and it's very simple to receive that delivery and then restock. Versus some bars and restaurants buy directly from drinks retailers like us, or a craft beer, or a specific local soft drink. So for us, as a small gin company, we look for bars and restaurants that can buy from us directly.
Yeah, so there's two things there, aren't there? One is that they'll have contracts with certain places, which means they're not actually allowed to buy from anyone else.
Yep.
And they will have got a deal where they've even been given some money, or some of the bar fixtures and fittings or whatever have been paid for by that distributor.
Yeah.
And then the other one is a convenience thing, is they don't want to have hundreds of different suppliers that they order for every week. They want to just order in one or two places. And if you've been following our Pipehouse Gin journey, then you'll know that this distributor issue is one that we've had quite a lot of trouble with.
Yes.
So this was really our first time sort of changing tack slightly. And one of the ideas was that a lot of these high-end restaurants, which really care about the provenance and having craft ingredients and craft drinks, are also going to be ones who are more likely to want to take that extra bit of effort and order from us directly.
Definitely.
Is that kind of what you got the impression? Because how did it really compare then, going around London to all these top restaurants that you were quite scared to go to, and you knew the barman by name type thing from front of an Instagram or whatever, versus going around in Kent?
So it was very different culturally. So walking into bars in London, the bar staff are just so welcoming, and this level of service is amazing. So I've got a lot of one-on-one conversations. They kind of dedicate time to you, and they see there's a value in them learning about new products. Whereas going into places around Kent, it's all about the fact that we're a local gin.
So for them, really, what they cared more about was our USP.
Yes.
The whole flavour without the sweetness, London dry, but no added sugar.
Yeah, and I had a few conversations with bar staff specifically around that. So they're all very much purist cocktail lovers. Like they love like a martini or a Negroni, where it's pretty much all alcohol, pretty much no mixers. They're the classic cocktails. So they really hate the flavoured gin market, because predominantly most flavoured gins are very sweet and they're a bit more like a liqueur rather than gin. But they're really popular. A lot of their customers ask for pink gin. They don't even ask for the brand. So as bar staff, they really liked the concept of our business and the USP, and they all said to me, I haven't seen this idea of a flavoured gin without the sweetness anywhere else, but we can see where it really fits into the market. So that was really nice to get that validation.
That's something we haven't really got here, have we?
Definitely not, because it's just not at the same level.
Yeah.
And I think the customers in London have very different expectations of their cocktail bars and their restaurants compared to the customers in Kent. And I think that's okay. And again, that kind of feeds in why I was so nervous, because I knew it was going to be a step up.
Well, and you couldn't fall back on the,
Local.
we're based just round the corner.
Exactly, which is what I've talked a lot about, like around in Kent. And it works really well in Kent.
And I suppose you start to worry that that is the only reason they're buying from you, that they're not buying into the concept or...
Yeah, I'll tell you something really funny. One of the bar staff, actually the first place I went to, said he hates pink gin so much that one time a customer asked for pink gin, which they do not stock in this restaurant, and he gave them a London dry gin with tonic, and he put some bitters in it. A particular type of bitters that changes the colour to pink. And of course the taste, because if you know anything about cocktails and bitters, is obviously it's bitter or sour, or it's quite strong. There's no sugar in bitters. It's a bit like the equivalent of putting like Worcestershire sauce in your spaghetti. It's that kind of zing of flavour. So the bar staff were like, they're very purist, basically. But also willing to play around. And there was a few anecdotes like that from other places where the bar team got really frustrated with customers asking for specific gins and thinking they knew a lot about the gin market and the flavour of gins. And in reality, they didn't know anything. So for things like that, it was quite interesting to get those anecdotes. And little insight into the gin market from professionals in London. So that was really interesting for me.
I think one of the other reasons I was kind of most excited about you doing this trip was, for a lot of people, this sounds like their idea of a terrible day, going in cold to random bars, trying to strike up conversations and somehow subtly bring in the sales element of it. But, you know, we talked other podcasts about this before. Your sort of long-term goal is not just around the gin, but is around sort of food and drink.
Yes.
And all the restaurants you went into are ones that you really, really like and that you would love to actually
work with
yeah. And get to know them a bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're places you go to in your free time anyway. And so here you've had an excuse. We're also having an excuse to talk to the people, and now they recognise you, now they know you.
Yeah.
Now you can follow each other on Instagram. And so it builds your personal brand and helps you get little ins into these places which you otherwise might not have been able to.
Definitely.
As well as getting our gin into some pretty awesome spots.
Yeah, which looks great for our brand.
Yeah, that's the thing we didn't really mention is the reason we're going to do so much effort is because we want our brand linked with these very well-known places, even though it's not really worth the money. You know, you're going in, you're buying a cocktail. That cocktail's probably going to be more than our margin on a bottle of gin that we sell to them.
Well, I kept thinking about that, and of course, every single drink was free.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, I tried to pay for each cocktail I had at the bar, and every time the bar staff said there is no bill. So it was fantastic.
Basically, you got a free bar crawl around all the best restaurants and bars in London.
It was absolutely amazing. I loved it. I was having such a good time.
You had a great day, didn't you?
I did.
I think it's really cool. We're interested to see what comes of it. You know, will any of these relationships continue?
Yeah.
Because it's a bit like round here is that we didn't really know any of the business side of the restaurants and bars and stuff, even though we were eating there and drinking there a lot. But as soon as you start introducing yourself and talk, and now you've got a reason to, and telling them about the gin, and once they start stocking us and they've got a bit of buy-in there, suddenly we're friends with so many of these awesome people who we never would have otherwise met.
Yeah, and there's a whole different side to the industry. We can be involved in like creating menus and talking about new products and events that these bars and restaurants do locally. Like, we love all that side, and we would never even have those conversations with the restaurant and bar owners if we hadn't introduced ourselves as gin owners.
Yeah, because the reason we're doing these businesses is because we want to, and they're fun. Like, what's more fun than making gin?
Yeah.
Like tomorrow, we've got a very serious meeting where we're going around to a Michelin-starred restaurant who's been designing a new cocktail using our gin.
Yeah.
To try it out. How cool is that?
It's amazing.
And you've done a few days where you go around with a few of the distributors who we work with and their sales reps, and it's just like a piss up.
Massive piss up.
You just do a bar crawl around all these places.
Yeah.
They're all very soft salesy. So what they do is they go in, they order a few drinks.
Sit at the bar, have a chat.
They'll all expense it, so you'll get all of them for free, and then you just get to know the bar staff and stuff. It's pretty cool. And it's completely different, because the other reason I want to talk about this is if you watch something like The Apprentice, you get this impression that you can just walk into anywhere, sell them some tat, and they'll buy it. And then when you watch it, you're like, there's no way you could walk into a shop like that.
Yeah, and they'll actually buy something off the street.
And they'll buy something off the street.
Yeah.
Well, it's not quite that simple, and it does take a little bit more relationship building, but that's exactly what you've been doing. You've been going in, telling them about it, giving them a sample or two, chasing up a week later, going back in another time, and your hit rate of places you go into and actually end up stocking us is really good.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about building the relationship. And that's the thing, like the way I could have played London is I could have done loads of online research of who the restaurant managers and the bar managers are. I could have then emailed them and called them to get a meeting. And then I could have used that day on Tuesday to meet with them back to back. And I did actually see some people doing that. So in one of the last restaurant stroke hotel stroke bars that I was in, there was actually a beer tasting going on next to me. So it was quite a big bar, so I could kind of see what was going on kind of opposite me. And this sales guy had kind of 5 or 6 different beers, different glasses, and he was giving the spiel. And it was quite interesting for me to hear what he was saying, but also how he was coming across, how he displayed his products. And he had a meeting with some different staff members who I didn't interact with, but what I was doing was I was sat at the bar ordering a drink, and I was talking with the bar manager. So I got the attention of the most important person, and the guy that had booked this beer meeting was talking to someone else who probably isn't necessarily working behind the bar, isn't really involved in the day-to-day stuff. Maybe he was like an operations manager, but so it was quite interesting that I was trying to approach it a bit differently.
Well, especially when the person who's going to be recommending what gin the customer buys is the guy at the bar.
Exactly.
Especially with something like gin, where they'll probably have 20 different gins, all of which are premium, so all of which will be in a similar price range to us.
Yeah, so you want them to recommend you.
Yeah.
It made me think, you talk a lot about in business that sometimes it's not always about you doing loads of research and you doing it the right way, or the way that everyone else does it, but actually being a bit naive, not knowing too much about the protocol in the industry, just turning up at the bar and getting a really good chat with the bar manager is actually really good.
Definitely, because the right way is what everyone else is doing it.
Yes.
And there are so many sales reps whose job it is just to go around and try and get in with places.
Yeah.
And they're all doing the same thing. So you coming along and doing it a bit differently. The other thing I remember is when you started, it took a while for you to realise that actually telling them that you are the owner of the business, because everyone just assumed you were like a commission sales rep.
Yeah.
So while they were nice and friendly, that's a very different sales pitch saying, actually, this is my business, this is my brand.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because it took me quite a while to realise that. I didn't think it needed to be said. But I kept getting these comments like, oh, what pay structure are you on? Or, oh, are you working tomorrow? Or things like that. And I was like, why on earth are they asking me those questions? And then it hit me. They don't realise, they don't assume that I'm the owner. They assume I'm a paid sales rep.
Yeah. Well, it's probably because they've hardly ever had the actual owner come in. Originally I was like, oh, is it like an age thing? Is it like a gender thing? But I was like, no, they just never have the owners take the time themselves to come in and talk about it.
Yeah. And it's a bit I'm a big fan of going to food markets and food festivals where you go to different stands and you talk to the business owner that's created this, I don't know, street food or this new drink. And it's just such a nice experience to go to lots of stands and hear from the business owner how passionate they are about the product. And that's always stuck with me. That's something that I would love to recreate one day. And I feel that I am really doing that with the gin.
But also, you've got your ear to the ground, so you will recognise the owner of and most of the market stalls we go to, it's not the owner there. And then when you see Ottolenghi or someone actually making the food himself, you get really, really excited.
I do, and it's quite funny because that's happened to me quite a lot at Taste of London events, where there'll be, the format of Taste of London is that they have lots of restaurants that will do pop-up restaurants, basically. You can order a few small dishes and it's street food, and it's a way of trying their food, particularly if they're Michelin star, at a very cheap price. But what's funny is the people that are serving aren't obviously the head chef, but I know exactly, as you said, I know what the head chef looks like. And there's been a few times where I've actually just gone up to the head chef who's standing by the stand and be like, oh, it's so nice to meet you, and have a proper chat. And everyone's looking at me like, does she know something we don't? But yeah, I find that really funny.
Yeah, I remember we went to a foodie event around here, not that, a few months ago. And the people we were with, who were similar to you, kept being like, oh, that's that person. I have no idea who they're talking about.
Well, yeah, obviously, because Sam has no facial recognition, so it wouldn't know anyone.
And these famous chefs who weren't actually, they were kind of overseeing things. They weren't doing the cooking, but they were just wandering around. Yeah, I wonder if that'll ever be you. That people, actually, we've had it a couple of times, haven't we? When we're doing market stalls, people will recognise us and come up and chat to us because they've seen us on social media or they followed a blog or something like that.
Well, I'm starting to get it more and more. The last time I had it, I was in a bar in Tunbridge Wells, and I was having a meeting with someone over a cocktail about the gin, and someone came up to me and said, well, they were basically fangirling me. Interrupted our conversation to just be like, oh, I'm so happy to meet you. And I was just like, this is really weird.
Yeah.
But I've had it a few times locally outside of doing the events.
I think probably because part of it is that you put these people on such a pedestal.
Yeah.
You know a bit about them. You think that you're like frauds in comparison.
Yeah.
That you're
Way
complete
below
amateurs.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope that was an interesting episode. Just something a bit different. I think the main takeaway is that for Emma, this is something where she has multiple goals from all this sort of stuff, and a lot of them. And it's not that she's doing this because she just wants to sell loads of gin. It's because she really enjoys going to these places. She wants to meet them. She wants to get a bit more known in the industry. She wants to build her food and drink credentials, all this kind of stuff, which could then lead to maybe a completely different career later down the line, something else she's passionate about. But it's whole building her of expertise and credentials in this sort of London food and drink scene.
Yeah, definitely.
As well as selling our gin.
Yeah, which is great. And because I'm so into food and drink, I know both locally and in London where are the places we should be stocked in.
The other final thing to say was that a couple of places you went to were stuff where there's like 3-month waiting lists to go for dinner. And you're able to just turn up, get a drink at a random time, because it's part of your job, and end up talking to like the key people in the restaurant.
Absolutely amazing. I thought I was in heaven. This particular restaurant I wanted to go to since the day it opened, and I just walked in and went to the bar.
And got it all for free.
And the service was amazing. And I would love to go back, even more so than when I first walked in.
Yeah.
But I think the takeaway for that is don't be too intimidated. Just because you hold something really highly and you think it's like way above you. The reality is that these bar staff really want to hear about new drinks, and they get something out of suppliers coming in and telling them about what's going on in the industry as well.
The other thing to say is a lot of these people probably have the goal at one point of maybe going off and doing a similar thing to what we've done.
Yeah. And that's interesting you should say that, because some of the bar staff I did ask, have you ever thought about creating your own drinks business? Because some people were really knowledgeable about the industry to me. And I was thinking, well, you obviously know where the gap in the market is. But they all said no for different reasons, which was interesting.
Maybe when you go back, they'll have a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, Emma, I've been thinking.
Yeah, maybe. I've sown the seed.
All right, well, let's leave it there. Thank you for being the interviewee today. And yeah, new gin coming out. It'll be out on the 30th. Pink grapefruit and thyme. It's delicious.
You can buy it on Amazon or through our website.
Yeah, and in all good restaurants and bars.
In Tunbridge Wells.
In Tunbridge Wells. If they don't sell it, they're not good. All right. Cheers and goodbye.
Bye.